Salamu alaikum, people of Earth. Servant of the Most Merciful, aka Sajid, had a debate with Mr. Batman recently, where Mr. Batman argued for the exact same thing that he argued for in the other video I responded to. I guess this is like the only thing he knows about Islam or something. But in any case, I want to respond to some of the things he said, which were either not addressed or were given the dumbest answers. So they're debating on whether or not Allah deceived the people into believing that Jesus died on the cross, thus creating Christianity. I already dealt with this extensively in my last video on Mr. Batman, so you can check that out when you want. Servant of the Most Merciful brings an interpretation from Ibn Kathir, which explains that the companions were made aware of the fact that Jesus was offering to put his likeness onto one of them to die in his place, and then that person would go to paradise.
Okay, so I'm going to clarify first the story of Prophet Isa according to interpretation of Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu. Before Prophet Isa والسلام, was raised to heaven, he gave his likeness to an eager and young companion who really wanted to take it. After Prophet Isa والسلام, was raised to heaven, the Jews raided his house and they took the disciple that looked like Isa والسلام. They were not sure if it was him, but they killed him with the help of the Romans and said it was Isa والسلام. The ignorant Christians also followed him, and his disciples split into three different groups. One group, Al-Yaqubiyya, said, Allah remain with us as long as He will, and then ascend to heaven. Allah is referring to Jesus Christ. Another group, An-Nasturiyya, said, the Son of Allah was with us as long as He willed, and Allah took him to heaven, indicating that the Son of God was Jesus. Another group, Muslim, said, the servant and messenger of Allah remained with us as long as Allah willed, and then Allah took them to Him. Al-Yaqubiyya and An-Nasturiyya then began to accept the common story of Prophet Jesus being crucified in order to appease Romans and Jews, and began to say he resurrected. The ignorant followers of him, not 12 companions but simply other followers, followed the conjecture and took the common story over what Prophet Isa spread and taught. The group that held on to the right belief was killed for it, and the message of Islam was blocked out. Prophet Muhammad came, and this is what Ibn Abbas says about this story. Now, the main thing we need to understand about this story was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the opportunity to realize that this was not Isa, that Prophet Isa was the true prophet. He didn't lie to them in the revelation. He simply deceived them into thinking that one of the disciples was Isa. And even then, they weren't even sure if it was Isa. They looked like him, but they didn't have enough conclusive evidence to say it was him. They just wanted to say that, well, we got rid of Isa as sort of block out his message.
So as we can clearly see, even if we go with Batman's logic, the disciples, the people who you believe actually wrote the books of the New Testament, was aware that Jesus wasn't gonna die before the execution took place. But unfortunately, they were eventually killed off by the disbelievers. This point was repeated many times to Mr. Batman, and he just continued to assert that we can't go with that interpretation because how would you explain the disciples believing that Jesus died?
That's a problem, sir, because not only did Jesus's own mother not recognize him, apparently, and again, she knew him very intimately. I would have to hope you would agree with that. Also, the disciples who walked with him, the people that were healed by him, the people that were fed by him, all these people that were raised side by side with Jesus in this very area, they knew him, sir. They knew him. And again, this was not just a look-alike. Your God caused these people to believe this thing, sir.
I don't think he was paying attention. According to Ibn Kathir's interpretation and the subsequent narration from Ibn Abbas, the disciples were aware. I think Batman thinks that we have to accept the New Testament narrative because reasons. So in the Q&A, I presented Quran chapter 4 verse 56 to him. Since it says that Allah gave Jesus the gospel, it categorically rules out the New Testament as being from God according to the Quran. Therefore, we don't have to obey what it says about this event. This is what he said to that.
Okay, so Jason Skywalker says, the point of my question was, how can you say that the Quran confirms the New Testament when
the Quran doesn't confirm the New Testament, sir? That's the whole point.
Thank you, Batman. You're the hero we needed all along. You finally admitted what every other Christian apologist still refuses to admit. The Quran does not command us to obey the New Testament. We can finally lay this nonsense to rest.
And we gave him the gospel, in which was guidance and light, and confirming that which preceded it, of the Torah as guidance and instruction for the righteous? So that's a pretty long
Yes, sir.
question.
Yes, sir. And it also says, according to the Quran, the gospel was given to Jesus directly. Who gave it to him? You see, that's a problem. Jesus
So
is
you
the
said
gospel.
Allah.
Jesus is the Torah, sir. Jesus came to fulfill the Torah. And, sir, nobody gave him the gospel. He is the gospel. The word gospel there means good news. They're going to sit there and tell you that they appeal to the Bible. They're going to point to the Torah, the Psalms, the Injil is what they call the New Testament, and they're going to say, see, Muhammad said this is the previous revelation of Allah.
So let's get this straight. The Quran doesn't point to the New Testament, therefore we don't need to believe in it as Muslims, but we need to accept Jesus as the gospel because the New Testament says so.
Circular reasoning is the fallacy of arguing for a conclusion using an argument that already presupposes that conclusion.
And honestly, I don't see the conflict here. Gospel just means good news. Jesus can be the good news and preach the good news, which he often did in the New Testament.
Jesus is the Messiah. If you, from the standpoint of being a Muslim, are going to agree that Jesus is the Messiah, what is Messiah and what does it mean?
I mean, I assume that that's a rhetorical question.
Yes, sir, because I understand you don't know.
According to the Bible, the Messiah is one who will establish God's kingdom on earth, rule over it with justice and God's law, and defeat Gog and Magog. So, yeah, we're in agreement. It's the Christians who have warped this idea. The rest of the debate is just him preaching and giving bad arguments and dodging questions. Oh wait, there was one other thing he said that I thought needed to be addressed.
And again, this was not just a look-alike. Your God caused these people to believe this thing, sir, and in turn actually created the Christian faith.
Well, Mr. Batman, Jesus dying isn't the only thing Christianity is built on now, is it? No, Christianity is built on the idea that Jesus died for the sins of the world, according to Scripture, that he was buried and rose again 3 days later, according to Scripture, and he destroyed death in the process, freeing us from the shackles of sin. Also, he's God. And you seriously want to justify coming to all those conclusions just because one man died? Are you for real? How can you justify making all those leaps? Jesus dying is not enough to start Christianity. Hell, it's barely a first step. You guys added a lot more to it. Nobody told you to start a religion based off of one man's alleged death. You did that all on your own. Assalamu alaikum, fellow viewer.
One more thing!
You mispronounced the name of your God. It is not Allah, it is a lie, because you've exchanged the truth of God for a lie.
I wonder what Jesus would think about this joke. And just because I'm cynical and, well, use the laws of logic,
Using the laws of logic.
I would like to point out to Mr. Batman that Allah is an ancient Semitic word. English is a 14th to 15th century language. And so this joke doesn't make any sense because at the time the word Allah was being used in ancient Arabia, English didn't exist. So if you were to say a lie, no one would know what you're saying. Assalamu alaikum, fellow viewers.
We know about the true companions and all of his companions, even the fake ones. We know about this because of Ibn Abbas' narrations. Ibn Abbas was a companion of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We may take his interpretation with a grain of salt, as it's not direct from
Sir,
Prophet
would you
Muhammad
mind
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
speaking English?
but this is from what?
How rude!